Okay, take a look. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 26. Behold, I set before you today a blessing and a curse. Which, let's pause it here for a moment. This is the opening verse. I set before you today a blessing and a curse, and that simply means, on a very simple level, what Moses is telling the people is, listen up, folks. There are two paths in life. It's your choice. You can choose good stuff. You can choose not good stuff. The choice is yours. There are two paths. Equal paths. Equal in the sense that they're both freely choosable, if that's a word. They're both freely available for you to choose. Right? The right path, the left path. I'm not saying which one is which, right or left. They're both good directions. But in life, you have two paths. Crossroads. One, he says, will be a blessing, and one is a curse. By the way, not every choice in life is a blessing or a curse. Right? Am I going to go with the mango sushi or the California roll? I mean, I don't know if that one's a blessing, one's a curse. Just two rolls of sushi. But when it comes to sushi, is always my go-to example, as you may have seen. When it comes to food examples, so yeah, blessing or curse, I don't know. They're both fine. But in life, when it comes to moral choices, when it comes to spiritual, crossroads, yeah, there are choices that end up being a blessing and choices that end up being the opposite. So Moses is telling the people, look, life is not just, whatever, no big deal. There are important choices in life. Take a look at how he defines it in the subsequent verses. The blessing. Yeah, how do you get the blessing? Behind door number 1 is the blessing. What is that path? That you will heed the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you today. So, in other words, heeding the commandments is the path of blessing. That is that choice. That is that door. And what about the curse? If you will not heed the commandments of the Lord your God, but turn away from the way I command you this day to follow other gods which you do not know, and again we have the predominant theme of the book of Deuteronomy, which is follow God, do not follow the idols, do not follow false gods, worship other things, other forces, no idols, not even American idols, right? No other idols. American Idol, was that Simon Cowell? Was that him? Yes? I heard he just broke his back. I saw an article. He fell off a moped or something. We wish him a refuah shlema, a speedy recovery. Okay, back over here. Oh, actually, no. Okay, let's pause and let's go a little bit deeper. That's the basic meaning of these verses. Let's go a little bit deeper. The opening word in the translation is behold. I don't like that word. Why don't I like that word? Because the Hebrew is re'eh. Re'eh, right there. And re'eh means to see, like S-E-E, with your eyes, to see something. Now, if you and I are having a conversation and I tell you, oh, hey, see this, right? Then whatever. Yeah, so if I say that, so it usually implies that I'm showing you something, right? The word re'eh, see, usually implies that there's something that's being shown to the individual. So what is being shown to the Jewish people? What was Moses holding up? What was Moses saying? See? What was he showing them? So the mystics give another interpretation. It wasn't that Moses was showing them something. He was telling them that the way they see will determine whether things are a blessing or a curse, and this is true on multiple levels. Number 1, it says in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, that a wise person, a chacham, a wise person, is someone who can see what will result from their actions. So wisdom is defined by not taking a short view of things or a very close look at things, but rather taking a far look, seeing things from a distance. That's what wisdom is defined as in Pirkei Avot and Ethics of Our Fathers. And that means the following. I'll tell you a story. So there was once a father back in Russia who took his young son to the mikveh. Now, the way they had a mikveh then is they used a lake. You know, who has a fancy schmancy, indoor spa-like mikveh, ritual bath? They used the lake, and sometimes the lake was frozen in Russia in the winter, and in order to get into the water, you actually had to break the ice, right? It wasn't a game to break the ice, it was an actual thing, and you would go into the mikveh, and that's it. And it was freezing cold. So one time, his father takes his son, and they break some ice, and his father, helps his son lower into the mikveh and out, and the son shrieks. It's so cold. He says, Or, that's not a good impersonation. Whatever. He shrieks. He shouts. It's super cold. And then his father wraps him in a towel, and the son says, He says, ooh, first, and then, nice. It's good to be in a towel. He warms up. The father says to him, you should know this is a lesson in life. There are things in life where the oo comes first and the comes second. And then there are things in life where the comes first, but the oo comes second. You want to choose things that are oo and then not then oo. Let me explain. Right? So some things in life are difficult. Difficult, challenging, take something out of us. Yeah, even maybe sometimes a little bit painful. But ultimately, it leads to a greater good. Ultimately, it leads to something magnificent. That is the oo, right? It's painful. It's not easy. That's the oo, followed by Baruch Hashem. Thank God. Thank God we did that or went through it, whatever it was. So it wasn't so easy, but the end result was positive. The opposite is something that begins, a pleasure. But at the end, it's, what was I thinking? What was I doing? Why did I do that? That was a big mistake. So in life, we want to get the oos before the ahs, not the ahs before the oos. Hope that makes sense. Getting back to the story. So what does it mean to see the blessing and the curse? It means to have the foresight, to have the wisdom, to have the ability to see what will result from our actions. Are they going to be good now and beyond, or are they going to be a blessing now, or something that feels good now, but will end up being a disaster? That is not the definition of a blessing. The blessing is something that, even if it's a little bit difficult now, is ultimately for the good, whereas the curse is something, even if it seems nice, even if it seems enjoyable, pleasurable now, but ultimately it doesn't end well. That's where the sight comes in. Are we able to see what will result from our actions, or are we taking a very short-term view? The point is, the lesson is, take a long-term view. So that's one message. By the way, Mark, it's good to see you. Mark, welcome to the session. It's good to see you on 2 feet. In good health, I hope. All right, listen. I can sense. We don't need you to be unmuted.
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, it's Hashem, I'm okay, so yeah.
There you go. Good. To only good health. Okay. The honor of Torah study should only be good health. Let's take a look. Let me go a little bit, even a little bit deeper. So again, on a simple level, we have 2 choices in life: blessing and a curse. On a bit of a deeper level, it's about seeing the result of our actions, not taking a short, very narrow focus, but looking a little bit of a longer focus. Even if it seems good now, what's going to result from this? But I want to give you now a third understanding, and that is, and this to me is the most meaningful for me personally. And that is that what determines whether life is a blessing or a curse, it's re'eh. It's how you and I see it. If you look at life through rose-colored glasses or rose-tinted glasses, you know what? Everything looks beautiful. And even the challenges, even the klala, even the challenges, yeah, you understand. Look, a little hardship, a little adversity, a little challenge. Good, it's from God. It's meant to lift you higher. It's meant to challenge you, to evoke a greater strength, but you take it in stride. All of that is a product of re'eh, how we look at life. If we look at life, if we look at things negatively, then everything's a curse. If we look at things positively, then everything's a blessing. It's like the story of the 2 kids. The pessimist, the optimist, and the pessimist. You know the story. Parents had two kids. Two boys. One was an optimist, one was a pessimist. So the parents wanted to do an experiment. So the kids each had their own room. So one day while they were in school, this is before COVID, one day while they were in school, the parents took the room of the optimist and filled it up with manure, with horse, whatever, just to see. And the pessimist, they filled his room with toys, with all sorts of wonderful things. The kids came home from school. We'll do the pessimist first. The pessimist comes to his room and it's filled with toys, all the good stuff that he wants. He's upset. He's the pessimist. Well, why are you upset? What's wrong? He's like, no batteries, or it's going to break. I don't like these. Finding something to complain about. No matter what, it's the greatest stuff. Still doesn't like it. It's all a curse. What about the optimist? He's laughing. He's throwing the dung around. He's so happy. He's in his element. And the parents say, what is going on here? He says, with all this manure, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere, as he's digging through it. So look, in life, there are pessimists and there are optimists. And the optimist looks at everything like a blessing. The pessimist, everything's a curse. Here's where the choice comes in. The choice is re'eh. The choice is not the blessing or the curse. That's the result of the choice. The choice is, how do you see life? How you see life will determine whether your life is a blessing or it's a curse. I love that insight, and to me that's personally meaningful. Okay, so let's continue, and we'll talk about Moses' instructions to the people upon entering the land. When they enter the land, what should they do? Verse 29, and it will be, when the Lord your God will bring you to the land to which you come, to possess it, that you shall place those blessing upon Mount Gerizim, and those cursing, the tribes of blessing upon Mount Gerizim, and the tribes of cursing upon Mount Abel. Basically, they divided the 12 tribes into two units, 6 and 6, and they stood on two mountains that faced each other. The valley in the middle had the priests, the Levites, and the tabernacle was in the middle. The ark was in the middle, and they proclaimed. The priests, they proclaimed the blessings, and the blessing tribe said, "Amen" for the blessings if you keep if you stay the way of God. And then they said the curses, and not the cursed tribes, but the tribes that were representing the curses, they said amen to that. In other words, if you don't do the right thing, then it's not going to be good. And that was kind of a covenantal moment upon entering the land of Israel, once again accepting the covenant and the consequences of either keeping or failing to keep God's ways. So this is what Moses is talking about. He's talking about two mountains, Mount Gerizim, Mount Abel, and the different 6 tribes on one, 6 on the other. Are they not on the other side of the Jordan? He continues, way beyond the direction of the sunset, land of Canaanites, who dwell in the plain opposite Gilgal, near the plains of Moreh. Okay, which basically defines where that place is. For you are crossing the Jordan to come to possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you, and you shall possess it and dwell in it, and you shall keep to perform all the statutes and ordinances that I am setting before you today. Okay, again the theme is you're going in. I'm not going in. You gotta keep the faith. Okay, here we go. Deuteronomy 12. And Moses says, these are the statutes and ordinances that you shall keep to perform in the land. Now, there's going to be a very specific payoff here. Of course, we always begin with the famous refrain of not worshiping idols. You shall utterly destroy all the places where the nations worship their gods. So all of the idolatrous temples and altars, destroy. Tear down their altars, smash their monuments, burn their asherim, those are trees of idolatry that they worshipped. Burn them with fire, cut down the graven images of their gods, and destroy their name from that place. And you shall not do so to the Lord your God. Don't destroy God's temple, but destroy the idolatrous temples. Okay, all of that we've got before, well discussed in Deuteronomy. But take a look at this one. And this talks about the This talks about Jerusalem. Verse 5. But only to the place which the Lord your God shall choose from all your tribes to set his name there, you shall inquire after his dwelling and come there. In other words, if you wish to bring an offering, a temple sacrifice, it needs to be done in the one and only Jewish temple that will be in that place that God will choose. In the place that God will choose from all your tribes, the holy city, basically the Jewish capital city, that's where you should bring your offerings. Verse 6, and there you shall bring your burnt offerings and your sacrifices and your tithes and the separation by your hand, and that means like donations, and your vows and your donations and the firstborn of your cattle and of your sheep, and there you shall eat before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice in all your endeavors, you and your households, as the Lord your God has blessed you. Basically, have one temple in one location that's in the holiest spot. Now, you and I know where that was. Ultimately, that was in Jerusalem, on the Temple Mount, and we call that space the Holy Temple, the Beit HaMikdash. But here is an obligation to set that up, and a prohibition against essentially opening up other temples and other altars around the land of Israel. The Jewish people were not permitted, today we don't have a temple, but in the times of the temple, the Jewish people were not permitted to just open up another temple. Yeah, it's too far. Who wants to go all the way to Jerusalem? Let's open up a satellite. Let's franchise this thing, right? Let's make locations, a drive-through altar. No, you cannot do any other worship, any other service on this level outside of Jerusalem, the place that God has chosen. The mystics say that the fact that the Torah does not name Jerusalem, it just refers to it as the place that God shall choose, but it doesn't actually say the name of the city, Jerusalem, alludes to the fact that now, when we don't have the temple, we don't have, that experience. So our prayers, the prayers that you and I recite, that takes the space, that takes the place of the animal sacrifices. And where do we offer our prayers? Everywhere. Everywhere and anywhere. Exactly where we are. We don't have to go to Jerusalem to pray. We can do it anywhere. That's the meaning of that's the hint, the secret of why the Torah doesn't specify Jerusalem, even though we all know what it means, Jerusalem. It doesn't specify because there will come a time when it won't be limited to Jerusalem, when it will be wherever indeed we are. That becomes the chosen space. Where is Shiloh? Good. Yes. Shiloh, or Shiloh, that's the way it's pronounced in Hebrew. Mark is asking about Shiloh. Shiloh was a place in Israel. I'm not sure exactly where geographically, but it was a place in Israel where the Mishkan, the tabernacle, rested for a number of years. I believe for a few hundred years. So just to set the historical piece of it, the Jewish people left Egypt. I'll start with the Exodus. They left Egypt, wandered for 40 years in the desert. They had a portable sanctuary called the Mishkan, the tabernacle, that went with them. When they went into Israel, so they carried that tabernacle, the tabernacle of Moses, with them, and eventually they set it up in different cities as they were traveling. And eventually it settled in Shiloh, where it stayed for a few hundred years. But it was still that portable sanctuary. It was built of wood and gold. It wasn't built of stone, like the temple in Jerusalem would. It was only later, much later, in the times of David and times of King Solomon, a few hundred years after the Jews first entered the land of Israel, that they that the Jewish people finally built the temple of stone. So that's what Shiloh means. Now let's keep on looking at. Hold on one second. Here's the gold coin. Okay. I'm going to skip. Okay. We're going to fast forward to the second reading. I want to make sure to get in some of the second reading, which is today's reading. Always a surprise. No, that's my doorbell. Hold on, in case you also have ring. Who's that? Nice, folks. Hold on 1 second. All right. Somebody needed a Jewish book and hooked them up with it. Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 12, second reading. Here we go. Once again, we get back into the temple and the temple offerings. And it will be, I'm going to read a few verses, that the place the Lord your God will choose, again, vague, not mentioning Jerusalem by name. Even though, by the way, I mentioned before, but I didn't clarify. Jerusalem was a space where Jacob, well, it's where Adam and Eve were initially created, from the space where the altar would be built. It's where Jacob had the dream with the ladder. It's a place that comes up throughout history as a very holy place. So it was known where that place was going to be, but again, it alludes to it to indicate that today, anywhere that we are can be a holy place. Absent the temple, any place can be that holy place. Okay, so the place where God will choose, in which to establish His name, there you shall bring all that I am commanding you, your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithes, etc. Let's continue. Here we go, verse 13. Beware lest you offer up your burnt offerings any place you see. In other words, don't bring it anywhere that you wish. It has to be the specific place, but only in the place the Lord will choose in one of your tribes. There you shall offer up your burnt offerings, and there you shall do all that I command you. What about eating meat? Not sacrificial meat, right? But what about eating steak? Eating a burger, if you're so inclined. Yeah? Here we go. However, in every desire of your soul, in other words, if you wish, you may slaughter and eat meat in all your cities. So it's only the sacrificial service that needs to be done in Jerusalem. If you want a burger, you don't have to go to the temple and slaughter the animal so that you can eat some flesh, some meat. You can eat it wherever you are in all your cities, according to the blessing of the Lord your God, which He gave you, etc. However, you shall not eat the blood, you shall spill it on the ground like water. So here we have a discussion about eating meat. Now, to clarify this, if a person is a vegetarian, not a problem. There's no mitzvah, you don't have to eat meat. Even though many have a custom to eat meat and drink wine on Shabbat, that's all in the context of celebrating and enjoying Shabbat, with the premise being that many people consider it to be meat something nice to eat, and something pricey, something costly, something, a step up than the ordinary. You go out to a restaurant, you order meat, it's the most expensive thing on the menu, etc. So on Shabbat, we're honoring Shabbat, we're enjoying ourselves, so the custom is meat. If somebody finds meat distasteful, then you don't have to eat meat. There's no sense to punish yourself on Shabbat. That seems that's totally contrary to the energy of Shabbat. So that's number one, disclaimer. Number two, the Torah, already in the times of Noah, from Noah's Ark, Noach, the Torah permits human beings to eat animals. Why? That's a good question. In fact, it's a topic that we're going to explore in the Jewish Course of Why on Tuesday night. So tomorrow night, we're going to explore the mechanics of eating and why the Torah permits us to take the life of an animal to eat an animal. We'll talk also about animal sacrifices, but all of that we'll cover in Tuesday night's class. We don't have enough time to get into it now. But the bottom line is, Torah permits a person to eat meat. At the same time, there is a sacrificial service. So what Moses is doing is he's making a distinction, saying the sacrificial service, when you slaughter an animal for God, that has to be done in Jerusalem. If you're slaughtering an animal, shechting an animal, to eat kosher meat, that you can do wherever you are. Doesn't have to be Jerusalem. But here's the caveat. Here's the one thing that you can't do. Assuming it's kosher, which this Torah portion does talk about what is a kosher animal, etc. We'll get there in a few days. But however, Moses says, do not eat the blood. This is hearkening back to a commandment that's mentioned prior in the Torah. There's a prohibition against eating blood. No vampires. I think we may have even discussed it. You shall spill it on the ground like water. In other words, you're not allowed to eat it. Why not? As we've discussed, I'm pretty sure we discussed this before, maybe in the book of Leviticus. The reason for the prohibition, one of the reasons for the prohibition of blood, is that blood represents the actual life of the animal. So the meat is one thing, but to eat the life, to consume the life of an animal is quite another. Plus, consuming the life blood of the animal would inculcate within us, or would inject within us the traits of an animal, and that's not necessarily what we're trying to do. We're trying to elevate the animal. This is the theme that we'll speak about tomorrow night. Little preview. The goal is to elevate the animal and to elevate the experience, not to become inundated with the energy of the animal. Not to become the animal, but to elevate the animal. Eating blood would take us down and not bring it up. So that's a short version of the blood. Oh, Mark is asking, what does it mean that we may eat the pure and the impure animal? The unclean and the clean you may eat thereof. Okay, let's see. Let's see if Rashi throws something in. Oh, here. It's referring to people that are clean and unclean, not the animal. People in a state of purity and impurity can eat meat. Okay? Here we go. Since they formerly had holy status, it is necessary to give explicit permission for both the unclean and clean person alike to eat from the meat, even from the same dish. Okay. Listen, we have to look up the commentaries a little bit more, but it seems like it's referring not to the meat. It's not saying you can eat kosher or not kosher meat. That would be quite surprising, right? Oh, how do we miss that one the whole time? It's not what he's saying. Saying is the clean and unclean person may eat thereof. In other words, you don't have to eat meat in a state of ritual purity, as opposed to when you offer a sacrifice in the temple, you would have to be in a state of ritual purity. You couldn't go to the temple without being in a state of ritual purity. Whereas when it comes to the desire of your soul meat, which means just personal meat eating, that doesn't have to be in that state, in that status. Yeah, as of the deer, of which no sacrifice is ever brought. That's why deer is used, because a deer is never used as a sacrifice. If you would eat venison, it would only be for private consumption, hence the mention of that. Listen, the comment, we just have to look through Rashi and probably even look beyond that into the Talmudic sources, but that's the basic gist of it. By the way, I was responding to Mark's questions. Good questions on that verse. Now, let's continue. Oh, you know what? It's a little bit, we're of time, but let's see if there is one more theme that we can talk about. Once again, be strong not to eat the blood. There's a temptation to eat the blood. For the blood is the soul, and you shall not eat the soul with the flesh. That's what I was talking about before. That idea of the life itself being inside the blood. The lifeblood. Don't eat. Okay. Oh, and here makes a distinction. The blood of the sacrifice is poured upon the altar, right? So when you bring a sacrifice in the temple, again, we're contrasting the animal sacrificial service in the temple versus, ordinary eating meat, non-temple, non-ritual related. So the distinction is one has to be in Jerusalem, one can be anywhere, one has to be certain animals, one can be all kosher animals. And when it comes to blood is sprinkled and poured on the altar from the animals. So the blood is involved when it comes to the sacrifice. The blood is involved in that process. Whereas when it comes to consumption, personal consumption, blood is not part of that consumption experience. And the way Kabbalah explains it is that blood is passion. And so when it comes to serving God, sacrificing to God, when it comes to giving to God, that's the passion. When it comes to fulfilling our own desire to eat meat, our own temptations, we don't have to be so passionate about it. You got to eat, but we don't have to have the blood, that vitality, that passion in the experience. Keep your passions for the altar, keep your passions for God. You have to eat, but keep the excitement for holy things. Okay, so with this we'll conclude. We started out by talking about, just a quick recap, we started out by talking about Re'eh, about seeing the blessing and the curse. We gave a few different explanations. Number one, there are two paths in front of us in life. Number two, it's all about seeing the future or seeing what will result from our actions. It might feel good now, but be a disaster later, so let's choose what will be good long term. And then I mentioned the pessimist versus the optimist, different ways to see life. Everything is either a blessing or everything is a curse, depending on how we choose to see. Seeing is a choice. We spoke about in the rest of the first reading. What did we speak about? We spoke about smashing the altars. Oh yeah, we spoke about the blessings and the curses on the two mountains once they entered the land of Israel, and that's a very interesting topic, which the Torah will elaborate soon. The book of Deuteronomy will elaborate on that process, what that was going to look like, and then we talked about a little bit about the sacrificial service, Jerusalem, temple, prayers today everywhere, meat that we eat, etc. Okay, what's the bottom line? Let's do good things. And let's bring Mashiach. That could always be the bottom line, right? Let's do good and make the world a better place. With passion for the right things and not passion for the selfish things. Let's be a little less selfish and more selfless and more about the bigger picture. Okay, that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll continue. Like I said before, this week we have a very interesting conversation about the laws of kosher, so stay tuned for that coming up, and we'll talk about also false prophets, Enron. I'm kidding. Different types of false prophets with a PH. So that we'll talk about in the coming days. It's a very interesting Torah portion with a lot of different mitzvot, so we'll try to cover as many as we can. Tonight is numerology, but who's counting? Tonight, join me for the secrets of the mysteries of Hebrew numerology. It's going to be a fantastic course. Tomorrow, the Jewish course of why, where we will elaborate on this theme of animal sacrifices and personal eating, and the party continues. I think we pretty much have a class every night this week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Hang around for a while; it'll be fun. Okay. See you all. Wishing everybody good health. And you too, Mark. To only good health.
Thank you.
All right. No more monkey business. No more fooling around here. Only good health. Okay. That's Rabbi's orders. There's doctor's orders and there's Rabbi's orders. The Rabbi's orders are stay away from the doctors. No, only because you're in good health. It's good to see doctors also. Whatever. To say hi. In shul. However, for health, only be healthy. Okay, all right, that's it. Stay well, and we'll see you all. Have a wonderful day. See you soon.
Thank you.
All right,
Sure.
bye.